I think one thing that I think would be interesting to talk about is how fandoms differ, because I think right now until this point we've talked a lot about general traits that many fandoms have, and in general what it means to be part of a fandom and the different levels you have, positives and negatives. But I think it's important to distinguish that depending on the fandom, your experience can be very different. Even in the anime fandom, depending on the series you're into, your experience might be very different. For example, one interesting example is Lord of the Rings. My experience with it has been that
I love that anime.
It's my favorite anime as well.
My favorite anime.
I love it. But like the experience in that community is, I think to a certain level, they are much more tolerant than certain other fandoms. But then once you hit that critical mass of being too different, it turns really fast.
I think Lord of the Rings might have the benefit of, don't know how to say this, but it's what I would call a dead series, because there's not new content, at least until the Amazon series comes out, there's not like new content being pumped into it, so you don't get this influx of new fans that sort of cause this destabilization. It's just a group of old wizened wizards sitting in the corner, like
right,
being fairly tolerant. Whereas with active series that are like really,
it's the council of fairly tolerant wizards.
That's how I picture the Lord of the Rings fandom.
We're old and white, but we're fairly tolerant.
My experience is that fandoms are much more chill and inviting depending on their size. I think the smaller the fandom, the more like indie the interest is, the more welcoming the community is, because you're like, holy crap, I just found another person who likes this thing.
Yeah.
Whereas with something massive, it becomes like, all right, you like this thing? Okay, what part of this thing do you like? You like that part? Fuck you. Get out of my fandom.
Yeah.
Oh, you think you like Pokemon? Well, name them all.
I'm sorry, Bulbasaur was your starter?
I don't think so.
Loser. Come back when you learn to Charmander.
And that makes sense, because as you say, it's a lot easier to find someone who's into Lord of the Rings or who's into One Piece or into Pokemon than it is to find someone who's into that one band you really like. So if there's like 1,000 people at that concert or like 100 people at that concert, it's like, wow, you like this, you like that specific band as well? That is so random. Yeah, so I would agree with you that it's a lot easier than to bond over something like that, other than you like a mainstream series, but like if you want to be part of this fandom, you better be educated about this.
This fandom has a hierarchy, it has rules, it has its various preachers and sub-fandoms within the fandom.
I mean, that's really interesting also. Maybe something for you, Sophie. Why don't you introduce us, if you like, to different parts of sub-fandoms there are in fandoms? Since you were part of the Game of Thrones one, for example. Like, what different categories are there?
Even in One Piece, there's a shipping fandom. But it's really interesting how they sort of, I feel like they sort of merge or they separate into different platforms. So I reckon shipping
Tumblr.
Is really big on Tumblr, but you don't see it much in other platforms. I don't think any of us have made a video about, shipping like 2 One Piece characters together, and I don't see it on
I did once make a video that was top 5 ships, and people were very disappointed because it was actually the sailing ships that I was focusing on.
And I'm sure they do exist.
Clickbait!
I've seen it here and there on Twitter, but it's not huge. Whereas, I think I don't spend time really on Reddit, so I don't know what Reddit One Piece fandom is like. But then that also seems hugely different to, say the One Piece fandom on Twitter.
I think the shipping fandom it crosses over quite strongly with the fan art fandom as well. Like, I follow quite a few One Piece fan art accounts on Twitter, and I see some very questionable stuff quite often.
Please elaborate. What do you mean by questionable? I don't know what you mean by that.
Just, like Frankie having sex with 2 Robins with his various robot appendages, because Twitter is, notoriously friendly to 18 plus content.
To multiple Robins.
Yeah, because you can clone yourself, so that finds its way.
I'm literally dying laughing, I feel. Oh my god. Yeah, it's true. Like, I mean, as you said, there's like more creative side of it with like artwork and so on and so forth. Then there's more the analytical part. Then there's, just people power scaling characters.
There's also, and this is something I think new to the One Piece fandom, but there's like the drama fandom, which like was recently happened on both Reddit and Twitter. One Piece fandom drama has become its very own sub niche.
Oh, like drama
okay.
in the fandom?
So
Yeah, like between figures in the fandom. You know, like how on Twitter there's that meme about how the One Piece fan base goes crazy during break weeks.
Right.
Reddit is always like cannibalizing itself and other people in the One Piece community.
So it's kind of like, I feel like that's when you know a fandom has kind of reached a certain saturation, when it almost crosses over into a general fandom, kind of. It's like having like a subcategory drama in the fandom is almost like saying you have like two musicians or something in music or something like that, or drama between Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings or whatever. Yeah, it's interesting. I think in general, at a certain point, it gets really hard also to, for me at least personally, to engage with a lot of things once a certain number of people participate in something. Because if you have literally hundreds of thousands or millions of people sharing their opinion, it becomes really impossible to like obviously keep in touch with everything, and like only certain things will bubble to the top. And again, that depending on the platform and the fandom you're in, that again will be gate kept, I would say is the grammatically correct term for this, probably, by the people who run said platform, or in general the majority of the fandom as a whole.
Cool. Yeah, agree.